Making games is awesome. Making money is awesome. And making money by making games is just a win-win situation. Now, we've all heard the stories about how people go on to make their own games and end up making millions and millions of dollars off them. But unfortunately, that's the exception and not the rule. And we hardly ever hear about the masses of people who fail to make the money back that they put into the game, if they make any money at all. Heck, how many people start working on a commercial game and give up partway through development? Maybe that's happened to you, because it's definitely happened to me. In fact, it's been documented on this very YouTube channel. Now, before you click off, I don't mean to sound all doom and gloom like I'm out here preaching the freaking indie-pocalypse. In fact, with some strategy and some persistence, you can build to the point where you're making a healthy living off of making your own games. And if you want to make games that bring you hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, you first need to figure out how to make $1 in revenue. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. Basically just going over how you should plan the development and marketing of your game and answer some questions like what kind of game should you be making if you want to make your first dollar from making your own game. Now, I'd really love to hear what you all think about this. Definitely let me know what kind of strategies you have to making your first dollar through making your own game. You can let me know down in the comment section right below those like and subscribe buttons, or over in our Discord community. Over there, I'm kind of building up a nice community of people who are interested in the Unity data-oriented technology stack and the entity component system, but also want to build it up as a place where we can talk kind of more openly about the business side of game development. So again, go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description of this video, and we can go over there and talk about the business of making games. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about if you're making your own game, because, if you're working for someone else, then of course, you just work for 2 weeks, collect your first paycheck, and then boom, you made your first dollar through making games. So that's not what I'm talking about today, because, finding a job and actually landing that job is, a whole nother many topics inside themselves. So today I'm just going to be focusing on how you can make your first dollar by making a game that you made yourself. So the first step is going to be to set your goals and expectations for your project. If you've never made any money from making your own games, then making your first dollar can be quite a challenging task. Instead of setting your goal at, making $1 million, making the greatest game ever, set your goal to be making $1. Doing this is going to set your expectations, because if you set your expectations way too high and you don't come anywhere close to that, you're just going to end up disappointed. And then if you set your goal at just $1, anything above that is going to be extra, just icing on the cake, which is awesome. The decisions you make when you're making a game that's going to be trying to make $1 million is going to be really different than the decisions you make for a game that's just trying to make $1. So this kind of brings me to my first point about what kind of game you should make. So of course, if you're making a game that's just supposed to be making $1, you want to keep your expenses as low as possible. Of course, there are plenty of free and cheap game creation tools as well as game assets, and you should definitely take advantage of those, because there's no reason to invest like $10,000 into a game where you're just gonna make $1 back. And kind of going off that, I don't think it's really a good idea to hire someone as like a full-time person at this point. But if you're looking for some cheap contract work on a website like Fiverr or something like that, I think that's totally fine to just pay someone a small fee for a little bit of contracted work. Also, I think you should definitely keep the scope of your game very low. So you should really be targeting to finish this game in about 1 to 3 months, because anything after that, if you're only making $1, is it really worth it? You want to get in the habit of finishing a game, being able to create it from start to finish and then bring it all the way to release. And if you can do that in 1 to 3 months, that's going to be a bunch of awesome practice for you. In fact, there was a game that I made in just 1 month called Escape the DJ Booth. It's just a little escape room game. And again, I made that in 1 month and I released that, and it's definitely made me more than $1, which is pretty cool. If you'd like to check that out, I'll leave a link down in the description below as well. So now the next point about what kind of game that you should make: don't make a game that's for everyone. If you have like a really super high budget for your game of millions and millions of dollars, then that might be okay to make a game that's more for everyone. Think of Grand Theft Auto. and how many like different things that you can do within that game, don't make a game for everyone, because that's going to be, an impossible task that you're not going to be able to finish by yourself. Instead, you should find a niche. Specifically, if you can, find an underserved niche, because if you can meet the needs and wants of people within that niche, within your target audience, then you're going to make, a bunch of sales off that right away. And, I'll hear this a bunch of time, people on podcasts talking about, oh, why don't they make another one of these games? Or why hasn't anyone made a game that uses this mechanic? Those are awesome opportunities for you as a game developer or designer to actually make that game. And then you obviously pretty much have one customer right away. And then, if there's one person asking for it, especially on like a public platform like a podcast, chances are there's going to be a bunch of other people who want that same thing. You should definitely look for little opportunities like that. And as far as what platform that you should be launching on, it doesn't matter. But at this point, if you're just trying to make $1, you should be launching on one platform and one platform only. Now, if your game becomes, more successful, of course, you can launch on more platforms later, but you should definitely focus on that one platform, put as much effort into that as possible, and really just kind of like figure out the specifics of that one platform, become a master of that one platform. Now, of course, a major consideration is going to be knowing your monetization strategy, and this is something that you should have figured out at the very early stages of development in your game. Of course, the most common strategies for developing a game would be a paid game where you just pay, a certain amount of money and then you get full access to the game. Or you have a free-to-play game where you have maybe some in-app purchase type elements where people can buy different things in your game, or you have some advertising where however many people view the ads, you end up getting a little bit of commission from, displaying ads to people. At this stage, I definitely recommend going with a paid game, because this is going to help you focus on actually selling your game. With a free-to-play game, you're going to get more downloads inherently, but if you actually want to make some decent money off of ads, you're going to need a lot of people to download your game. And I think it's probably actually going to be easier to sell a few copies of your game rather than getting, thousands and thousands of people to download your game and play it long enough where they can get displayed ads over and over and over again, so you can actually make some money off of that. And then with in-app purchases, that starts getting into things like player psychology. And again, that's another whole nother giant topic within itself. So again, I don't think you should be focusing on that right now. I think you should be focusing on making a good game that you can sell for a fixed price and focus on being able to sell that game to people. I think that's going to be the best exercise for you at these early stages of just making your first dollar from your game. Now, ideally, you should have your target price figured out at the beginning stages of development of your game. I know there are plenty of developers who have success not really knowing what their price is until they're close to the end of the development, when they actually know what like the scope of the game is, what their content is, and really what the perceived value of their game is. Again, I know people have success with that, but I think it's probably a good idea for you, again, at these early stages, to have that target price figured out at the early stages of development. Again, I think it's something that will influence your creative decisions and just kind of give you a direction of what you should do when you're making your game. Now, an extremely important thing if you want to sell your games is to actually build a following. So it's crazy to think that you can just, make a game in isolation with no one knowing about your game, and then you just dump it onto some storefront and expect anyone to buy it at all. Now, first of all, you need people to play test your game. So ideally, these should be people who are within your target market and target demographic, and you should be playtesting your game as early as possible, even when it's literally like gray boxes on the screen moving around. Just when you have those like very core prototypes in, you should be testing things out with your game, figuring out what people like and what people don't like about your game. That is going to be huge for you. That feedback is critical. And of course, just post your progress on social media. Even if you have 0 followers on whatever platform, just go ahead, post it up there. Make sure you're using, hashtags and, posting it on different places where people are actually going to find your work. And chances are, if people think your thing is cool, then maybe they'll start following the development of your game, and then now you kind of end up building a little bit of a following. Now I know us as game developers often think that it's a good idea to, kind of hide things away about the development of our game and kind of keep them secret, because that's what we see these like big AAA publishers doing. But you know what? You're not a giant high budget AAA game studio. Those studios can get away with building hype by, showing just small little bits and pieces of their game. As an indie developer, you can't really do that. You need to constantly be showing people why your game is awesome. I'm not saying that you should spoil every aspect of your game, but definitely, show people the progress, make people kind of like feel like they're involved in the development of your game. Of course, build that social media following, build an email list if you can. And then if you're on a platform like Steam, try and get those Steam wish lists, because that's really going to help you on launch day. Now, if you're just trying to make your first dollar, then it's probably not necessary to reach out to like YouTubers and streamers and journalists, but you might want to do it anyways. I think it's just like a good exercise to start getting in the habit of, reaching out to those kinds of people. And if you can, build relationships with people who cover the types of games that you like to make. But yeah, I think it's good to get in the habit of something like that, because now when you make your next game and maybe your goal is to make a few $1,000s, that's something that you're definitely going to need to do. You're going to need to reach out to, streamers and journalists to, broadcast your game to a wider audience. So leading up to launch, you're going to want to do a big marketing push. Whatever platforms you've built up, whatever social media platforms you built up at this point, you definitely want to just start, blasting out that, your game is coming out. Let them know the launch day, where they can get it, even how much it's going to cost. Just make sure all that information is known. Don't be afraid about, sending too much information through the, whatever social media channels. Because, maybe you will lose some followers, but that's fine, because those are the people who probably weren't going to buy your game anyways. So it's not like you're losing out on any kinds of sales. Also, just make sure your game is presented very professionally. Whatever platform that you're posting your game on, make sure you do a really good job and you make that kind of storefront look as nice as possible. If you have to make a description of your game, make sure that's really well written, because there's going to be a lot of people who are going to, watch through all your trailers, look through all your screenshots, read through your descriptions, and make a decision if they want to buy your game or not. So again, just make sure everything just all looks nice. Make sure it's all in the same style, and don't half-ass anything, because if your game looks unprofessional, a lot of people are just going to skip your game. And then launch day comes around. Of course, you're going to just, blast the crap out of all your social media channels. Make sure everyone knows that your game is available to be purchased right here, right now. Another little tip for me would be to go to everyone who helped you out during the development of your game. All the play testers, your friends and family who helped you out, even contractors you may have hired, again, just, cheaply off Fiverr or something like that. Reach out to them, of course, thank them for helping you create, this awesome game, and then send them a free copy of your game. And then, at the end, just say, hey, it'd be really nice if you could review this game, because, those people who helped out with your game, I'm sure they're going to be more than happy to leave you a positive review. And so that right there is just kind of social proof that, your game is a good game, and, people are going to be much more likely to make a purchase after that. Also, be sure to share the successes of your game with your audience. If you went on launch day and you sold way more copies than you thought, be sure to share that success. Again, people like feeling like they're part of that development process. If there were a bunch of people in your audience who purchased your game, and then you can kind of share that success with them, they feel like they really helped out with a good cause, and that's really cool. Of course, on launch day, also make sure that you're being, super active, replying to any comments and reviews that you're getting, and just being aware of any issues that come up in your game. So anyways, those are my main tips about how you can make your first dollar by making your own game. I know there were quite a bit of steps and things that we went over today, but I'd find it pretty hard to believe that if you followed all those things that you didn't make at least $1. And depending on the social media following or whatever following that you've built up, it's pretty reasonable to believe that you'd make several more dollars. Now, I'm not going to guarantee results, but doing all these steps is going to stack the deck in your favor as much as humanly possible. And it's really just going to get you on the path to being able to make a substantial, healthy living off of making your own games. So anyways, like I said before, I'd really love to hear about what you all think about how to make your first dollar making games. If you have any tips for everyone else, be sure to leave those down in the comment section below, or jump over to our Discord community where we can kind of continue this conversation a little bit longer. Of course, if you found this video helpful, I'd really appreciate if you hit that like button. Also, feel free to subscribe to the channel for lots more videos about features coming in the Unity game engine, as well as game development business topics like this one. Again, if you do have any questions or suggestions for future topics, you can leave those down in the comment section below as well. Anyways, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.